The forgotten humanity. The world was quiet, but beneath the calm, something extraordinary was about to unfold. It was an ordinary day for most in the galaxy, a day like any other. Yet, in the deep recesses of space, beyond the reach of the Galactic Council's watchful eyes, something impossible happened. A signal, faint yet unmistakable, cracked through the static of the vast nothingness. It wasn't from a known species, nor from any of the countless distant civilizations that roamed the stars. It was from Earth, the forgotten world. For over 1,000 years, humanity had been erased from the history books of the galaxy. Their name was no longer spoken. Their planet was wiped from galactic maps. Humanity, once a rising force, was now nothing more than a myth, a story whispered in hushed tones by those who feared what they could become, a story told only to warn others not to provoke the forgotten species. The message began with a crackling noise, barely audible at first, but it grew louder as it pierced through the silence. It was a simple message, one that had been lost in time but was now urgent. Humans are still here. The voice on the transmission was clear, but the tone was unsettling. It spoke of a humanity long believed to be extinct, and the words echoed through the far reaches of space, reaching ears that shouldn't have been listening. Across the galaxy, officials in the Galactic Council's command center sat frozen. The message wasn't supposed to exist. Earth had been erased from all records, obliterated from the galaxy's memory. The people of the galaxy had agreed that humanity was a threat, too dangerous to be allowed to remain. Their aggressive nature and unpredictable tactics were too much for the delicate balance the Council had worked so hard to maintain. However, the signal was a reminder of something the galaxy had forgotten. Humanity was not gone. And it wasn't just a forgotten species, it was a sleeping giant, waiting to awaken. A deep sense of unease spread throughout the galaxy's governing body. The Council had wiped out every trace of humanity. At least, they thought they had. Now, this message suggested that Earth was not only still inhabited, but had managed to survive undetected. What did this mean? And more importantly, how could the galaxy respond? They had written off humanity, but what if they hadn't just been hiding? They had been biding their time. The humans of Earth were more than just survivors. They were warriors. The galaxy had known them in the past, before the Great Erasure, as a species with unmatched ingenuity, strength, and determination. When the Council had decided to erase them, they had hoped that humanity would fade into nothingness. But instead, Earth had endured. The humans had hidden themselves, buried their history, and laid low while the galaxy carried on without them. On Earth, the transmission was received by a small group of scientists, former military leaders, and tech experts who had been aware of the truth all along. For years, they had secretly worked to uncover the truth of their past, using the ancient technology hidden deep in Earth's core to communicate with the stars. When the signal finally came through, they weren't surprised. They had always known that the day would come when they would be forced to confront the galaxy once again. They had known that, sooner or later, the galaxy would have to face the truth. The transmission was sent from a forgotten military base, one of the last of Earth's ancient fortresses. The people who sent the message had once fought for survival, struggling to protect their world from the very species who had now erased them from history. They knew what humanity had been capable of. They knew what the galaxy was about to face. When the message reached the Galactic Council, panic began to set in. Their worst fear was coming true. The humans were not gone. They were not extinct. And they were coming back. The Council's leaders scrambled to act. The news was too dangerous to ignore. A fleet was quickly assembled, and top-ranking officials met in private to discuss the implications of the message. But there was one major problem. The Council had no idea where Earth was. The humans had made sure of that. The location of Earth had been erased, hidden behind layers of coded signals and dead stars. The Council would have to work quickly if they wanted to stop humanity before they could make a move. Meanwhile, on Earth, the small group of survivors who had sent the message gathered their forces. They had been preparing for this moment for years. Their mission was clear: reclaim what was lost. They knew the galaxy had forgotten them, but they also knew something the Council didn't. They weren't just survivors. They were a force to be reckoned with. As the first whispers of the message spread, rumors began circulating across the galaxy. Some laughed, dismissing it as a joke or an old tale from a forgotten past. Others feared it was a trap set by the humans to lure the galaxy's defenders into a false sense of security. But the truth was undeniable. Humans had been erased from history, but they had never been gone. And now, the galaxy would face the consequences of its actions. The human survivors knew they had to act fast. The message was just the beginning. What would follow next would shake the galaxy to its core. Earth wasn't just going to reclaim its place, it was going to fight for it. And when humanity returned, nothing would ever be the same again. Humanity had been erased, but its legacy was far from gone. The transmission from Earth had sent shockwaves through the galaxy. What was once thought to be an ancient legend had become a terrifying reality. The humans were back, and with them, the mysterious legacy they had left behind. The Council was in disarray, unsure of how to respond to this new, unpredicted threat. After the initial panic, the Council's leaders gathered in an emergency meeting to discuss their next move. They were not prepared for this, not even close. A fleet had been sent to intercept the signal, but it was too late. Humanity had always been clever, and the humans had been hiding their tracks for centuries. They had covered up their planet's existence so well that even the most advanced technology in the galaxy had failed to uncover Earth's location. Now, as the Council scrambled to find Earth, the humans had already begun to prepare. A secret network, forged in the deepest corners of Earth's remaining civilizations, had been gathering strength. The humans were not just survivors. They were ready. Their technology, once thought to be centuries behind, had flourished in secret. The humans had rediscovered their roots, rebuilt their strength, and now they were ready to take back what had been stolen from them. On Earth, the survivors had started to make contact with their old allies. The message had been sent to test the waters, but now they had to prepare for what came next. Earth's ancient military bases, once thought to be abandoned and forgotten, were being reactivated. In secret, humanity's greatest minds had been working for years, perfecting their technology, developing new weapons, and planning for the moment when they would rise again. They knew they had to be careful. If the galaxy discovered their true strength, they might be obliterated before they could even take a step forward. As Earth's military might was slowly reawakening, the galaxy at large remained unaware of the brewing storm. Across the stars, many dismissed the transmission as nothing more than a desperate plea for attention from a species that had long been forgotten. But not everyone was so quick to dismiss it. There were whispers in the shadows, concerns from species who remembered the old days, who had seen the destructive power of humanity firsthand. They knew what Earth was capable of, and they feared what would happen if the humans returned. Back in the Galactic Council's command center, reports were flooding in from all directions. The fleet sent to intercept Earth's location had failed. Despite their best efforts, they were no closer to finding the planet. The humans had created a perfect cloak around their world, hiding it from the most advanced tracking systems. But it wasn't just their technology that had changed. Humanity's sheer determination, their unyielding will to survive, had also evolved. They had never forgotten how to fight for their existence. The Council's intelligence officers were working overtime, trying to piece together any fragment of information that might lead them to Earth. But it was clear that the humans had planned for this moment for centuries. They were not only prepared, they had been preparing for generations. The transmission had been a signal to the galaxy, a warning that Earth was not a forgotten planet. It was a planet with a purpose, and that purpose was about to be realized. Across the galaxy, other species watched in fear and curiosity. The humans had always been a wild card, unpredictable, dangerous, and relentless. The stories of their wars, their technological advancements, and their resilience had been passed down through generations. But over time, they became little more than myths. The Council had erased their presence, wiped their history, and assumed that the humans would never pose a threat again. But now, as the message spread like wildfire, the reality was dawning on everyone. Earth had not only survived, it had evolved. On Earth, the survivors had already begun to take action. They had access to ancient databases, forgotten technologies, and secret archives that had been buried deep within the planet's crust. They had the power to strike back, but the key to their victory lay in their ability to remain unseen until the right moment. The humans were not going to rush into war. They had learned patience during their years of hiding. They knew the galaxy had forgotten them, but that wasn't the same as underestimating them. A small group of military leaders, the last of Earth's elite forces, gathered to discuss their plans. Their mission was clear: reclaim Earth's place in the galaxy and remind the universe why humanity had been feared. They had no illusions. The road ahead would be dangerous, but they had something that no other species had: human tenacity, creativity, and the drive to succeed against all odds. The Deathworlders were not only survivors, they were fighters, and they were going to show the galaxy exactly what that meant. As the Council continued to scramble, the first signs of humanity's resurgence began to make themselves known. Across the galaxy, strange and unexplained events began happening. Spacecraft appeared from nowhere, ancient technology activated in unexpected places, and mysterious signals were detected in previously unexplored regions of the galaxy. It was clear that humanity's reach extended far beyond Earth, and they were preparing for something big. The message sent from Earth was only the beginning. The galaxy had no idea what was coming next. The humans were no longer the species that had been erased from history. They were no longer hiding. They were rising. And the galaxy would soon learn the true meaning of humanity's struggle to reclaim its place. The storm was coming, and it would not be ignored. As days turned into weeks, the urgency of the situation became undeniable. The galaxy had dismissed the humans as nothing more than a long-lost relic of a bygone era. But now that mistake was beginning to cost them dearly. Across the stars, strange occurrences were happening, all pointing to one undeniable truth: the humans were back. The Council, still reeling from the shock of Earth's transmission, found themselves scrambling to react. They had erased humanity from history, convincing themselves that the Deathworlders had long since disappeared. But deep down, a few wise voices in the Council knew better. They had seen the remnants of Earth's past, hidden, secretive, and powerful. Now those remnants were stirring. In the deepest corners of the galaxy, the whispers began. Rumors that humanity was not only alive, but had been quietly rebuilding, waiting for the right moment to strike. The Council sent their best fleets to scour every corner of the galaxy, hoping to uncover Earth's location, but each fleet returned with nothing. The humans were too clever, too resourceful to be tracked down so easily. They had mastered the art of hiding in plain sight. Meanwhile, back on Earth, the few survivors who had once lived in the shadows were starting to reunite. They knew they had a lot of work to do. The ancient archives, buried under layers of secrecy and time, were being unearthed. In these archives lay forgotten knowledge, lost technologies, strategies from ancient wars, and more. Earth's old military might, once thought lost, was coming to life again. It had taken time, but the humans had used the centuries of peace to build something incredible. They had used their isolation to innovate, creating weapons and technology that the galaxy had never seen before. The humans were also learning something else. The galaxy was vast, but it was not invincible. They had seen the brutality of the galactic factions, the greed that led to destruction, and the lies spread by those in power. Humanity had been crushed under the weight of these factions before, but now they were no longer weak. They had the strength to challenge those who had once believed they could simply erase them from existence. Back at the Council, panic was starting to take hold. The rumors of humanity's resurgence were growing louder, and some leaders within the council had begun to question whether they had underestimated the humans. One leader, an experienced war strategist, stood before the rest of the council in a solemn meeting room. "We've made a grave mistake," she said. "The humans were never as weak as we believed. They've been hiding in plain sight, and now they're mobilizing. They're preparing for war." Her words echoed through the room, sending a ripple of fear across the gathered leaders. They had heard the rumors, but they had dismissed them as unimportant. Now, the truth was undeniable. The Deathworlders had been preparing for this moment for generations. In response, the Council began to tighten its grip on the galaxy. They sought out every scrap of information about humanity, trying to learn more about their intentions. But as they dug deeper, they only found more questions. The humans had never been so well hidden, and no one seemed to know where Earth was. It was as if the planet had vanished off the face of the galaxy entirely. Meanwhile, on Earth, humanity's leaders were growing more confident with every passing day. They knew that time was running out, and soon the galaxy would come to understand just how powerful Earth had become. But they were also aware that they had to act carefully. The last thing they needed was for the galaxy to unite against them before they were ready. A small group of Earth's greatest minds had come together to craft a strategy. Their plan was simple yet daring. They would show the galaxy that humanity was not to be underestimated. Earth would no longer remain hidden. It was time to make their presence known. The strategy was a bold one, but the humans knew that if they didn't act, they would lose their chance to reclaim their rightful place in the galaxy. They would strike fear into the hearts of their enemies, but they would also show the galaxy something else. Humanity had evolved. They were no longer the primitive species that had once been erased from history. They were stronger, smarter, and ready to fight. As Earth's plans began to take shape, the Council continued to stumble in their efforts to uncover the humans' location. Their fleets continued to search the galaxy, but they were no closer to finding Earth. They had underestimated humanity's resourcefulness, and now they were paying the price. The humans had one advantage that the galaxy could never take away from them: their will to survive. The galaxy had forgotten them, but humanity had never forgotten their purpose. They had been erased, ignored, and abandoned. But they were still there, waiting for the right moment to strike back. And that moment was fast approaching. In every corner of the galaxy, rumors were spreading like wildfire. The humans were returning. They had never been forgotten. They had only been waiting. And soon, the entire galaxy would know the price of underestimating Earth. The storm was coming, and nothing could stop it. As the whispers of humanity's return spread across the galaxy, the Deathworlder fleet began to prepare. Unknown to the Council, Earth's ancient warships, dormant for centuries, were coming back to life. Their vast hidden fleets were emerging from the dark corners of the galaxy, hidden among asteroid fields and abandoned space stations. What once seemed like forgotten relics were now the heart of a force unlike any the galaxy had ever seen. The humans had endured isolation, but in that silence, they had grown stronger. The warships were not just ships. They were living testament to the resilience and ingenuity of humanity. These ships were built for survival, for war, for dominance, and they had been waiting in the shadows, ready to strike when the time was right. Back on Earth, the leaders of humanity knew that the galaxy could not be taken by force alone. Humanity was not the only race capable of war. They had to be smarter. With their fleet slowly returning to operational status, the humans focused on their next move. Earth had suffered in silence, and now the galaxy would feel their anger and desire for justice. In secret military bunkers scattered across the planet, humanity's most brilliant minds came together. The strategy had been clear: use their fleet's superior technology to outmaneuver and outsmart the galaxy's strongest powers. But humanity was also preparing for something greater. They had something the galaxy could never have anticipated: the knowledge of ancient Earth technologies, powers, and weapons that could rewrite the balance of power in the galaxy. The humans knew the galaxy would react with fear of their unknown potential, fear of the sheer force they had concealed for centuries. But it was a fear that the galaxy would soon understand was justified. Meanwhile, the Council, still unaware of the full scale of humanity's return, was becoming desperate. Their fleets were searching relentlessly for any trace of Earth. But every time they thought they were getting closer, they were forced to turn back. Humanity's ability to remain hidden in the vastness of space was beyond anything the Council had ever imagined. The humans had learned the art of survival in ways the galaxy could never comprehend. The Council's leaders were beginning to see the pattern. A few of them had suggested that humanity was preparing for war, that Earth's fleets were slowly being revived. But those leaders were quickly silenced, dismissed as paranoid or too cautious. The Council, still filled with pride and overconfidence, refused to believe that the humans were a threat. They had been erased for so long. How could they possibly be a danger now? But as each passing day saw more ships returning to the human fleet, the tension between the galaxy's factions began to grow. The rumors were undeniable. The humans were not just a dying race. They were a threat, a real one. And soon, they would prove it. The first signs of humanity's fleet becoming fully operational were subtle, a strange energy signature in deep space, a powerful signal originating from an unknown source, a transmission intercepted by galactic satellites, featuring only static, followed by the unmistakable hum of a human warship. The Council scrambled to understand what was happening. At first, they thought it was a fluke. Maybe some old human technology was malfunctioning. But as more and more reports came in, it became clear that something was very wrong. There was no mistaking it now. The humans were coming back, and they were coming back with vengeance. In the darkest corners of space, where even the bravest galactic explorers feared to tread, the human fleet was making its moves. The galactic factions began to take notice. Some tried to dismiss the reports, while others began to form alliances, fearing that the humans might unite the galaxy against them. Still, no one had a clear understanding of the human threat. They had always been written off as a primitive species, nothing more than a myth. But those who knew better, the wise, the cautious, understood that the galaxy was about to face something it had never seen before. The humans were not just fighting for survival, they were fighting for their place in the galaxy. They were fighting to prove that they were not just forgotten, not just ignored. They were fighting to show the galaxy what they had become, a force to be reckoned with. Back on Earth, the leaders knew it was time to make their move. The Council may have underestimated humanity's resilience, but they had no idea what was coming. The first wave of humanity's ships began to exit hyperspace, their engines igniting with the power of ancient technology, their weapons ready. And with that, the galaxy's silence would be broken. The storm had arrived. Humanity's fleet, forged in the ashes of their forgotten past, was on the move. And the galaxy, for all its power, had no idea how to stop them. The balance of power in the galaxy was about to shift. As humanity's ships slowly emerged from the shadows, their vast fleets stretching across the galaxy, the balance of power began to shift. The stars themselves seemed to tremble under the weight of Earth's ancient might. For centuries, humanity had been ignored, cast aside as a relic of a long-forgotten era. But now, Earth was rising from its obscurity, and the galaxy would learn that it had underestimated them. At the heart of the fleet was the Ascendant, an ancient supercarrier that had once been humanity's greatest weapon during the Great War. It was a ship so massive, it could rival the largest of galactic warships. Its massive engines roared back to life, its hull glinting with a dangerous, deadly promise. Thousands of smaller vessels, each powered by technology centuries ahead of the galaxy's best, began to align with the Ascendant, forming a formidable armada. But it wasn't just the size of their fleet that struck fear into the hearts of their enemies. It was the cold, calculated efficiency of the humans. The Dithworlders, as they were now called by the galaxy's inhabitants, knew how to fight. And they fought dirty. They were survivors. The galaxy had no idea what it was in for. Far from the bustling centers of galactic power, in a darkened command room on Earth, humanity's leaders sat in silence, staring at the projection of the galaxy's star systems. The time for diplomacy had long passed. Humanity's return was not one of peace. It was a declaration of war. Each leader on Earth understood the risks. The galaxy was powerful, but it was fractured. And now, humanity was prepared to exploit every weakness. They had learned the lessons of their ancient ancestors. They had survived the collapse of their once great empire, and in that silence, they had rebuilt their strength. Every movement, every battle, had been calculated, every plan set in motion years before they even fired their first shot. The first target was a small galactic outpost on the edge of the galaxy, a place where smugglers and outlaws gathered. The Ascendant moved into the system undetected, its cloaking technology making it virtually invisible. A small strike force of human warships dropped out of hyperspace, and within minutes, the outpost was reduced to rubble. Nothing was left. It was a message, a reminder that humanity was back, and they were not to be underestimated. In the galactic capital, the council members watched in disbelief as reports came in about the destruction. They had always known about humanity's past, but they had written it off as history, a long-forgotten chapter. They were wrong. The Ascendant's attack was only the beginning. Humanity's fleets were spread across the galaxy like a shadow, unseen yet everywhere. A single communication from Earth echoed through the galaxy's communication networks. "We are not forgotten. We are not weak. You will remember our name." It was a simple message, but it was enough to send a wave of fear rippling through the galaxy. The galactic leaders scrambled to understand what had just happened. They had never seen warfare like this. Precision strikes, ruthless efficiency, and technology beyond their wildest imagination. There was no honor in these attacks, no warning. Humanity's fleet struck like a storm, fast, unforgiving, and powerful. As the days passed, more and more reports came in. Entire colonies were wiped out. Trade routes were destroyed. Communications went dark. Humanity had returned, and they were not interested in negotiations. They were interested in vengeance. They were interested in power. The galaxy, once secure in its dominance, was suddenly on the defensive. The Deathworlders' fleet was unlike anything they had ever encountered. Even the most powerful of the galactic ships were no match for humanity's advanced technology, and the fear of facing the wrath of Earth began to spread like wildfire. The Council, still in disbelief, started to take action. They called for an emergency meeting, but they were divided. Some advocated for diplomacy, trying to find a peaceful solution. Others argued that humanity had to be stopped at all costs. But no one knew how. No one knew where the humans were. They had disappeared into the unknown, reappearing only to strike, and then vanishing once again. Back on Earth, the humans were not slowing down. They were advancing with an unyielding drive, pushing further into galactic space with each passing day. The fleet's commanders knew this was only the beginning. They were sending a message to the galaxy, one that would not be ignored. Humanity was no longer the forgotten species. They were a force to be reckoned with. And soon, the galaxy would understand that the Deathworlders had not returned to be passive. They had returned to dominate, to reclaim their place in the stars. The galaxy had never seen such terror. Every corner, every outpost, every colony that had once felt safe was now under threat. The Deathworlders, with their ancient fleets and overwhelming power, were making their presence known in the most brutal way possible. Humanity's return to the galactic stage was not one of diplomacy or negotiation. It was a reckoning, and the universe was not prepared for it. As the Ascendant continued its march through the galaxy, more systems fell. Entire fleets of aliens, once seen as the pinnacle of power, found themselves unable to defend against the relentless assault of the human warships. Advanced tactics, seemingly impossible maneuvers, and devastating weapons were being unleashed in quick succession, taking down even the strongest of enemies. It was as though the galaxy had forgotten how dangerous humanity could be. The Council, still divided in their approach, could no longer ignore the truth. Despite their disagreements, they were forced to unite in the face of a common enemy. Desperate messages were sent to every corner of the galaxy, rallying for a counteroffensive. But even as they prepared for war, they knew the odds were stacked against them. As the first wave of Allied fleets assembled, they began to realize the extent of humanity's power. The reports coming in from the front lines were devastating. The human ships were equipped with weapons that could tear through the toughest of armors. Their shields were impenetrable, their tactics unpredictable. Humanity wasn't just fighting, they were winning. In a last-ditch effort to stop the human advance, the Council sent out its most elite fleet, a massive armada that had once been a symbol of their supremacy. It was their greatest hope. This fleet had defeated countless enemies and crushed rebellions with ease. But the Deathworlders were not like any enemy they had faced before. The fleet arrived in the system, ready for battle. But as they came out of hyperspace, they were met with a chilling sight. The human warships were already there, waiting. The Ascendant led the charge, its massive form eclipsing the smaller vessels in its wake. As the two forces collided, the galaxy watched in awe and horror. The battle that followed was unlike any seen before. The human ships moved with terrifying precision, cutting through the alien armada like a hot knife through butter. Their weapons were devastating, their tactics flawless. Even the most experienced commanders of the galactic fleets were caught off guard, unable to adapt quickly enough to the sheer ferocity of the human assault. The battle raged on for hours, but it became clear that the humans were in control. Slowly but surely, the alien fleet was destroyed. And when the last of their ships were obliterated, the Ascendant sent out a single, chilling transmission to the galaxy. This is only the beginning. The galaxy was stunned. In one decisive battle, the Deathworlders had not only decimated the most powerful fleet the galaxy had ever known, but they had sent a clear message. Humanity was back, and they were not going to stop. Back on Earth, the leaders of humanity stood in silence. The victory was theirs, but they knew this was just the first step in a long, bloody war. The galaxy would not surrender easily. But one thing was certain. Earth had regained its place among the stars, and no one was going to push them back into the shadows again. As the Ascendant continued its journey through the galaxy, humanity's enemies scrambled to regroup. They could no longer pretend that the Deathworlders were a forgotten species. They were a force that would shape the fate of the galaxy, whether the galaxy was ready or not. And somewhere, far from the battlefield, a human commander stood in the shadow of the Ascendant, looking out at the stars. The war was far from over, but humanity had shown the galaxy something it had forgotten: the power of a species that refused to be erased. The galaxy trembled as word of humanity's victory spread like wildfire. Every species, every empire, every faction that had once regarded Earth and its people as nothing more than a forgotten relic now found themselves facing a terrifying reality. Humanity was back, stronger than ever, and they were not going to be silenced. The Council, once confident in their superiority, now found themselves scrambling for a way to deal with the humans. No longer could they dismiss Earth as insignificant. The human fleets had proven their strength, their ingenuity, and their unyielding resolve. In the wake of the battle, many systems had fallen into chaos, their former rulers either obliterated or forced to retreat. The Deathworlders had returned with a vengeance, and the galaxy had never been more uncertain. But despite the overwhelming victories, Earth's leaders knew that the war had just begun. They were not content with simple retaliation. They sought to reclaim their place at the table, to forge their own destiny among the stars. The battles ahead would be even more brutal, the stakes higher than ever. The galaxy had underestimated humanity once, and it would not make that mistake again. The Ascendant, humanity's greatest warship, continued to carve a path through the galaxy, sending shockwaves of fear across every star system it passed. The fleet was relentless, moving from one system to the next, claiming territory that had once been held by other galactic powers. Their tactics were precise, their technology far beyond what anyone had expected. It was clear that the Deathworlders were not only fighting for survival, they were fighting for something far greater. Their place in the galaxy, their sovereignty, and their future. As human ships destroyed alien fleets, entire colonies fell under their control, and former allies of the Galactic Council were forced to reconsider their positions. The message was simple: humanity was here to stay. And if the galaxy wanted peace, they would have to earn it. The once proud galactic leaders met in secret, their meetings filled with whispered concerns and frantic calculations. The war had shifted. Now it was no longer about stopping humanity's rise. It was about finding a way to coexist with the Deathworlders, or risk being destroyed by them. But even as the galaxy scrambled to regroup, humanity's resolve was unwavering. The human fleets, their numbers growing, pressed on, expanding their reach. They sent emissaries to the distant stars, offering alliances to those who would stand with them and threats to those who dared to oppose them. Earth had become a symbol of defiance, and their message was clear: humanity would not be forgotten, erased, or ignored any longer. Back on Earth, people celebrated their victories, but their leaders remained vigilant. They knew that every moment of peace was fragile, and they couldn't afford to let their guard down. As the galaxy simmered with tension, humanity watched, ready for whatever came next. The death toll of the battles had been staggering, but the message had been sent. The Deathworlders were not to be underestimated. Humanity had proven that they could not just survive in the galaxy. They could thrive, dominate, and shake the future of every species that dared to challenge them. And in the silence that followed, a single question echoed through the stars. Would the galaxy accept humanity's power and potential, or would it be forced to face the consequences of its own arrogance? Only time would tell. But one thing was certain: humanity would never again be forgotten. The galaxy had been shaken, and it would never be the same.